So welcome and thank you everybody for joining today's session, which is about inclusive STEM outreach. This is the second of our education outreach training that we're offering this year for IMechE members. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jelena Nagatisha and I'm the Education Outreach and Safeguarding Lead at the institution. I'm responsible for managing our education program in a nutshell. Last year, around this time, the IMechE launched its strategy of what we're aiming to achieve by 2030. And our mission didn't change. So we're still trying to improve the world through engineering. And we're focusing on two main themes of work, how we're going to do it. So we're looking to develop engineers on the one hand, and on the other hand, maximize the impact that those engineers have in society. Education cuts across all parts of the institution, so it's not just the outreach piece at the beginning, let's say from primary through to tertiary education. It is supporting engineers as they develop and go into, whether it's their undergrad course or their apprenticeships. It's ensuring that those degrees or schemes are fit for purpose. It's then supporting engineers through our library and provision that we have, as well as learning and development to ensure that engineers continue to meet the changing needs of not only industry, but wider society. With regards to education, what we're aiming to do, if we were to highlight three key areas, which are quite simple, but of course, a lot of different activity falls into that, a lot of collaboration and a lot of work across the institution and externally. We're looking to get more young people into engineering. We're trying to diversify that pipeline and also ensure that the people that do go into engineering have the right skill set, again, to meet the needs of society and industry. My role is to make it as easy as possible for our members to get involved in education outreach. And we do a whole host of activities. So there's the stuff that we sort of support from central headquarters. There's strategic partnerships and organizations that we work with, as well as providing training resources and linking our members through to our member networks, as well as some of those strategic partners. And then on the flip side is the actual delivery, and the majority of our education outreach work is actually delivered across our member networks by our members and coordinated by our regional education officers. And actually we have Ron Faulkner, who is one of our regional education officers, who's joined us today. So I will pass over to Alex, who's going to do an introduction. And we also have Anna Preston, who has kindly joined us today to pass on some of her advice and share her experiences with us. So please do use the opportunity to ask any questions. I know from my side that I do get questions from members who aren't really sure how to tailor outreach to kids with special educational needs, how to incorporate them so that they feel that they're included in whatever that they're doing, and also that we're pitching it at the right level. So please do use this opportunity. And like I said, this training is being recorded, and it'll be posted later on the education web pages if you want to share it or revisit any of the information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jelena. That's great. I'm going to share my screen so we've got a few slides to go through here. But once again, thank you everybody for joining this evening. It's lovely to see people interested in this topic. We ran a training session on inclusive STEM outreach, which we called Inclusion at the Core of STEM Outreach last year. And I think it was the most popular training session that we ran last year for IMechE members. So we decided we would build on that with another similar session, but getting different speakers in and looking at going into more depth really and broadening out that topic. So if you want to watch the recording of the last year's one, it's got lots of additional stuff that can support with here because you're interested in tonight. So as Jelena said, we really want this to be, a relaxed, informal setting for you to learn, share with each other. And if you've got any questions or any comments or want to share your own experience of inclusive STEM outreach, what's worked, what the challenges are, then please do feel free to put those in the chat or put your digital hand up and we can come to you. So a quick intro for those who don't know me. My name's Alex, and I am the founder and CEO of a non-profit called STEMazing, which we are very proud to be one of the IMechE partners. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer myself and a fellow at the IMechE, and I had a fairly long, not long compared to some people on this call who've got lots more experience than me, but I was in industry for 18 years before I decided to set up STEMazing. And STEMazing is all about inspiration and inclusion in STEM. So it aligns perfectly with the IMechE's objectives around education and outreach. And we are particularly passionate about diverse role models, but not just the diversity in the role models themselves, but how we can showcase diversity, no matter who the role models are, going out into schools and speaking to young people. It's fantastic to have a couple of the REOs on the call tonight. So anything that you want to share, feel free as well. And I think an important message that I like to tell people is that I would consider myself a role model now. Absolutely. I do loads of work as a visible engineer, inspiring the next generation. But I used to be extremely shy, extremely introverted, hated talking to people. And doing STEM outreach was one of the things that helped me develop my skills and confidence with public engagement, public speaking, and just being more visible and confident in myself, which helped me so much in my career. So I am super passionate about the benefits of STEM outreach for the STEM ambassadors as well as young people. It's a win-win. What we are doing tonight is the second in the series of training. We're doing online sessions. We're doing 3 sessions this year. So sign up to the one in September if you want to come to that as well. And then we've got some in-person training days that we'll also be running. One is just for the Young Members Board, but there will be 2 sessions, one in London at Brunel University, one up in Scotland at Strathclyde University, that are in-person training days that members can come along to and university students can come along to as well. So if you're interested in coming to some in-person training where we will focus a lot more on the hands-on practical activities that you can run with young people, then please do get yourself signed up to one of those. And hopefully the fact that we're running one in the south and one in the north of the UK will mean that a lot of people can get to those, or one of those. Okay. So as I said, we love getting the interaction going with the audience where possible. And one of the things that we took away from the feedback that we had from all of you members who attended our training that we ran last year was that you wanted more opportunity to network with other members interested in STEM outreach. You wanted more opportunity to share your thoughts and ideas and experience with each other and learn from each other, as well as listening to me and the other guest speakers. So we thought the first thing we would do is ask you all the questions. What do we mean by inclusive STEM outreach? And why is this important for the future of engineering? So why is inclusive STEM outreach particularly important for the future of engineering? And I'm going to put you into some small breakout rooms so that you can meet some new members, some fellow members, and hopefully meet someone new that you don't know before, that you haven't met before, and have a bit of a discussion about this. So I just give you sort of like 6-7 minutes to have a discussion about it, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts in the group. So you should see a breakout room pop up on your screen, and please click you're happy to join that, and then I'll give you a bit of notice when we're bringing you back in. So it's what do we mean by inclusive STEM outreach, and why is this important for the future of engineering? All right, go and enjoy your discussions. Thank you. Right. Welcome back to the main room. So hopefully you met somebody new in that session that you didn't know before. And I would always recommend trying to link in with people to grow your network of other amazing IMechE members. And hopefully you had a chance, I know I didn't give you very long, but hopefully you had a chance to start the discussion about what do we mean by inclusive STEM outreach and why is it important for the future of engineering. Does anyone want to be brave and let us know what kind of discussion was going on in their breakout room so we can share with each other? I won't pick on people. I'll let people be brave. John, yes, thank you.
Right. I was saying I visited a special school last week. It was the first time the school had done a careers fair, so they didn't quite know what to expect. And it was the first time I've been to a one-off SEND school, so I didn't know what to expect. There was 3 sessions of about an hour, and there were folk with different age ranges were brought around. It's all secondary school people, various abilities, and all I could do was talk to them generally, as I do to anybody, the primary schools, the secondary schools. And I think it went down well, but from the school's point of view, but I think it was a learning curve with them.
Yeah, of course. Well, the first time for anything is going to be a learning curve for everyone, but
Yeah.
well done and thank you for doing that. And hopefully you'll be doing more of that kind of thing because it's absolutely needed. And hopefully you can pick up some top tips tonight as well. Thank you for sharing that, John.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share discussions in their room? Yes, Stephen, thank you.
So we had a bit of a range of experience. So there was a couple of us who have had experience with SEND kids, either in a specialist school or like myself, I've been volunteering in a mainstream primary, but they've got a wide range of kids in there, and a couple that were wanting to understand kind of what was or gain experience from kind of what others are doing because they're a bit new to being ambassadors. But one of the things that was primarily coming out is as engineers, we're probably highly likely being in the neurodiverse range anyway. We're probably dealing with it and don't really understand why we're dealing with it because we've never been diagnosed. So the bit of discussion kind of went around that as well of, you know, we're in a diverse environment and why shouldn't we be promoting it and making it inclusive for them people?
Yes, love that point. That's a brilliant point. Thank you for sharing that. Fantastic. Anyone else want to share their thoughts? Ron, yes?
Yep. I've been into primary school where there was one child who was SEN who and we did a normal, if you like, presentation to get them to understand a little bit about what engineering was. And this individual was actually very good, asking very intelligent questions, very focused on what he wanted. And it sort of aroused me a little bit about, you know, why, you know, when the rest of the class goes out at the end of the session, he's the one who stays behind and is asking questions. So I think that these people who are on a spectrum of some sort, they do vary, but they are very active in their brain. But if you get them focused, if you get them focused in a certain way, they will work the way that they're told to work. So they are very, I won't say logical, but if they can focus themselves, they're very, very focused. And I think that how we handle them is difficult in a class, a large class, because they will demand the attention. And that's difficult to manage in an open forum, particularly if the teacher walks away and leaves you, then you're really on your. But I think there is a difference in how you have to handle these people.
And I think you make some good points there, in that there are challenges, but there are also so many opportunities, and
Yes.
there are being able to be more inclusive with how we do STEM outreach to include a wider range of people is only going to benefit engineering in the future. So
some of the figures I've seen, 30 to 40% of all engineers are neurodiverse.
Yes, we're going to get onto some of that as well, and looking at those facts and figures. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And any other thoughts, feel free to put them in the chat so we can capture those. But yeah, inclusive STEM outreach means more than just SEND children. Obviously, we're talking about how we're inclusive across many diversity characteristics, but SEN is particularly important. And why is this important for the future of engineering? Well, when you look at some of the stats that we've got here, where what are we looking at? Our existing diversity of our workforce versus the overall diversity of the nationwide workforce, we can see where some of those challenges but opportunities are as well, with 16% women versus 48% women in the overall workforce. So lots more we can do to attract girls and women into engineering. That's one way of being more inclusive, to show that it's for everyone, not just for the boys. When you look at ethnic diversity, it's only about 11% in engineering. And we can definitely go, I think, higher than the national average with ethnic engineers, because there's a much higher proportion of ethnic engineers in university that are not getting job opportunities. So we've got a big win we could get there by supporting more ethnic diversity and being more inclusive around that. When you look at engineers with a disability, it's currently, and that is a very, very broad spectrum term of disability. So it's currently 11% versus the national working average of 15%. So there's definitely improvement we could go there. And like some of the comments you were making, how actually a lot of engineering characteristics suit people who have certain ways of thinking and can be hyper focused and hyper detailed. And so actually we should be, again, I think, aiming to be above the national average when it comes to neurodiversity and disability in engineering. And then when you look at engineers from a poorer socioeconomic background, it's 24% versus 26%. So that might look quite good, but I think we've still got much more we could do there and push that even harder. So when we're talking about inclusive STEM outreach, we're trying to think across a whole range of different diversity characteristics. And that can be difficult as a STEM ambassador, to be thinking, how am I going to be inclusive with what I'm saying to everyone in the room, thinking about all these different facets of diversity? And one of the simplest things that we can consider is the topic of representation. So that phrase, you can't be what you can't see, simply by putting some images of these different diversity characteristics up on any slides you're showing, or a video that showcases diverse people in it, that in itself speaks to a wider audience than if it was just any single one of us standing up there who will not tick every diversity box. So we're going to have our own majority characteristics. But if we're able to showcase diversity wider than what we as individuals can represent, that helps people feel like they could see themselves in engineering. So I think that's a really, really important point, is that remembering to be intentional about the face of engineering that you are presenting to your audience, whatever that audience is: primary school children, secondary school children, undergrads, even when you're going to, say, do presentations out in community settings, being able to think about those images that you show. Okay. And some great examples are things like the This Is Engineering campaign. It's fantastic for showcasing diverse role models, images, videos, short case studies. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just use some of those, that already existing fantastic resource in whatever content and material you're sharing. Other sources of fantastic diverse role models, the Tomorrow's Engineers website, the IMechE website, our STEMazing website. There's plenty of places where you don't have to go and create this content from scratch. Just use what's already out there to help you. But it's not just about how you look and the look of the images that you are presenting or talking about or referring to. If you think about other ways that you can be relatable to your audience, to connect to your audience, that is super important. Thinking about different facets of diversity. There's this term that one of the teachers that we work with in STEMazing always refers to, which is connection before education. How can you connect to your audience before you get onto the informing and education piece? And think about how your audience can relate to you and how can they relate to being an engineer. It could be things like what you look like, as we've just covered, but even things like what you sound like, your regional accent. People can connect with that. So doing local STEM outreach where you have the same accent, maybe you went to a school in that area. These are ways people can connect with you. What you enjoy, your hobbies, your background, your characteristics. And I think that is particularly interesting and important. There's been some work done by Northumbria University researching the importance of characteristics relating to STEM outreach. And I'm going to share a little bit of that. And they encourage asking your audience to identify themselves in some of these characteristics so that your audience is interacting and recognizing things about themselves in these characteristics. And then you can refer to that throughout your session. So for example, they put these, they've come up with these 16 STEM characteristics. This is NU STEM, and you can have a look at their website, and they've got fantastic diverse role models as well, linked to different careers. I've put the link to their website there. So things like tenacious, creative, collaborative, logical, curious. These are fantastic sort of ways we can use language to connect with people. And it's not just about being good at science and maths. It's about having these characteristics that make somebody a strong, person in STEM. And if you can also connect with the audience because they say, for example, they like working in teams, they're collaborative, and you can talk about how you work in a team and mention some of your team members and the diversity characteristics of your team members, then this is another way we can connect to our audience to make us relatable. So if you have that as an aim to make yourself a relatable role model, but think about all the different ways you could make yourself relatable, I think that's very, very helpful. And we do talk about neurodivergence a lot when you talk about inclusion. It's a very, very hot, important topic, quite rightly. And so when you look at neurodivergence and inclusion and how maybe there are, as Ron said, sometimes additional challenges with relating and connecting to a neurodivergent audience, especially if you don't recognize that you have any neurodivergent characteristics in yourself, then it can be maybe a bit daunting to think about doing that. So, but it's vitally important because I've got these stats off the latest stats from the government website showing that we have in the UK, in England, sorry, just in England, over 1.5 million pupils who have got special educational needs and disabilities. So that's pupils in England with SEN. And that has been an increasing trend since 2016. So it's going up. So it's getting more and more important that we are able to engage SEN. 13% of SEN pupils don't have an education, health and care plan. So they don't actually have any like additional resource or investment for them in the school. So that is therefore, so the teacher maybe has identified that they're SEN, which can make it more challenging. Even in mainstream settings, so in mainstream primary schools, there's an average of 4 children in a class who have SEN. And autism spectrum disorder is the most common type of need for an education and healthcare plan. So autism spectrum disorder is one of the most important things that we can be aware of and thinking how we can be inclusive with that. And so that brings me on to welcoming Anna Preston to our talk tonight. I've known Anna for quite a while now, and she has impressed me so much with her tenacity and her courage and her enthusiasm for doing STEM outreach as a role model. So I'll hand over to Anna for her to tell you a bit more about her and what she is doing relating to this topic. Over to you, Anna.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Thanks for that build up there, Alex. That was nice of you. Just a little bit about me. I have known Alex a while. I'm a chartered civil engineer, and I'm actually also autistic. I'm probably that child that Ron was mentioning earlier that used to like hanging around after the class was finished to try and get more information. Sometimes because I was just so interested in it, and other times just because I hadn't been able to process everything that was going on in the classroom because of all the stuff that was going on around me. So sort of get where Ron was coming from with saying that. A little bit about my background. I'm really passionate about STEM for SEND pupils, or additional support needs as it's called in Scotland. Started out as a STEM ambassador in my company scheme at work, but during lockdown that ended, and I sort of went a bit rogue, really. I just was a like lone STEM ambassador, and I was mainly just talking to SEND pupils, SEND pupils about opportunities in engineering, but I realised that I needed to do more than that, and that's when I started doing research, and I did a bit of extensive research, and then I found Alex and STEMazing, and fortunately I got on this amazing course, and I've not really looked back since. It's sort of made it so my SEND passion has grown and grown and grown. Over recent months, we've collaborated with Alex, and we've sort of set about creating a little offspring group to STEMazing called STEMazing Spark is what we're calling it at the moment. And we're basically looking at how we can adapt activities just specifically for SEND schools or pupils with SEND needs in mainstream schools as well. And working hard on that. And inclusion is sort of starting to take shape now as I see it. So if I can just jump onto my next slide, please, Alex. So what I've found so far is there's a massive need for neurodiverse and disabled role models within STEM. During lockdown and since doing STEMazing, I've put activities on STEM hubs in my local area. And I've had so many requests from schools who want neurodiverse and disabled role models because there aren't enough of them about there. So I think it's important that people can step up. And as Alex keeps saying, you can't be what you can't see. It's sort of like very important to sort of step forward, I think. So what we're doing in our little group, this amazing Spark group, is we're looking at how we can bring further inclusion into everything STEM related. Inclusion is at the heart of everything that we're doing. So what we're doing is find out more about what we need to do is liaising with teachers at every stage of everything that we're doing. We're looking at adapting this amazing activities, but to try and do it in a way that includes everybody in the classroom. We're talking to the teachers because they know the pupils a lot better than what we do. So from just liaising with the teachers, I've learned quite a lot. Found out today that it's important for dyslexic pupils to include dyslexic friendly fonts and different coloured backgrounds. Very simple that, but it's really, really effective in helping pupils that are dyslexic. And if you look at the bottom of my slide here, this is a little addition what we've added to all our PowerPoints. It's got a sort of time scale on it, so pupils that are anxious or a bit like me that are autistic, we like to know what's coming up and what's about to happen. So as we go through the lesson plan with the pupils, we can colour in the square. So at the beginning we can colour in the square blue ask me any questions. Then we know that listening's coming up. We've also incorporated breaks into the activities because sometimes pupils can get overloaded and a bit worked up, and we allow breaks within the activities, so it gives them chance to sort of cool down or calm down or whatever they need to do. Also, for children and pupils with coordination difficulties, we found that when we're demonstrating the activities, rather than watching us do it, sometimes we'll have photographs of our hands looking down. So it's like looking onto our hands doing the activities, because they can't always match with what's going on opposite them. So stuff with coordination there, and what was called dyspraxia, that can help with that. And then recently, we're about to deliver a session to a school that has a high number of pupils with high SEND needs. And one of the amazing activities that we're looking to demonstrate there is one that Alex came up with. It's showing pupils how forces work, and basically they make a rocket and launch it with a straw. Through liaising with the teachers, we found that there's pupils in wheelchairs that can't often blow hard enough to get the rocket to launch. And then we've got autistic pupils in the class that don't like blowing. It's a sensory issue. I know about that myself. So we've had to work around that and just coming up with simple ideas, like we've made a sort of balloon pump that can stick onto the straw so they can pump the rocket off without doing any blowing. So it's just a matter of being able to adapt and trying to make it so it can work for everybody in the classroom and everybody can join in the experiment. That, to me, that is inclusion. That's fully inclusion, everybody being able to just join in. And we're also as well looking at modifying some activities and adapting them for blind pupils. And that's all about, it's a very challenging topic, that, but it's all about trying to adapt different senses and making use of what blind pupils and visually impaired pupils can use. So it's like more about touch and sound and or any other senses that they can use. So that's something else that we've learned about. I'm liaising with the Royal Society for Blind Children, and I'm also liaising with a school that has just blind pupils at it. So hopefully we'll be coming up with some ideas for that very soon. My other big tip is to always allow extra time for the activities when you're dealing with SEND pupils. There's always more questions I've found from my experience, and sometimes you have to go over things a few times. They don't always sink in, and you might have to keep repeating things. It's just a case of patience, really. So I always allow extra time. And also we're trying to take into account what the pupils feel. So we've come up with a little chart that you'll see with sad, content, happy. And we're trying to get feedback from the pupils and teachers so we can continuously improve what we're doing and create better activities. So it's very much at the beginning of this experiment, but we're hoping to keep learning and improve what offerings we can give to these SEND pupils. Also, Alex just asked me before we started if I could also talk about some of the challenges briefly of what I have as being an autistic role model as an engineer. One of the things is I might be coming across a bit like that today. I get a bit overloaded. I have been focusing a bit hard myself at work today, and I get to the point where my brain sort of seizes up and stops working. So when I am actually planning to do a STEM activity, I usually try to keep calm that day and not overload myself. So that's something that I do struggle with, and I can imagine that autistic pupils in the classroom also struggle with that. My biggest challenge, I'd say, though, is when I am actually delivering sessions in a classroom, I can't filter out individual voices. So when everybody in the classroom's talking, I can't make sense of anything. And I quite often feel a bit stupid when pupils are asking me questions because I can't filter out one child's voice against everything else that's going on in the room. It's just like snippets of every single conversation, which is a bit of a nightmare. That's sort of something that I can understand and feel for the pupils in the classroom. When they're in there and everybody's making noise, it must be awful for them as well. What else is there? Confidence. I think that's something that I sometimes struggle with. Growing up, I didn't know I was autistic and I never really fitted in anywhere. And I think that's damaged my confidence over the years. But I think actually being a STEM role model is actually building that back up. I think it's helped me quite a bit. There are a lot of positives, I'd say, to being a STEM role model. One of them is that just helping others. My desire to help others is so strong. And then when you're helping others learn about STEM and engineering and what I do, it's just such a great feeling. And that connection you get with the STEM pupils, just to me, it's like, I haven't even got words for it. I can't even describe it. But yeah, there's so many positives to doing it, and I wouldn't change anything about it. I'm hoping to continuously learn.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think sharing your personal experience and your personal journey and what you bring personally as an autistic engineer, STEM ambassador, to the rest of us to learn as well, like understanding challenges, because I think we probably, you know, whether we realize it or not, as engineers and people just in society, we will be working and you know, interacting with people who probably are on the autistic spectrum at some capacity. So having a bit more empathy for what the challenges are can help us all to communicate and work better with each other, but particularly when we're going into schools and we know that there is a high percentage that there is going to be children with SEN even in a mainstream school class. So it's absolutely vital that we consider how we can ensure they feel included and comfortable and can take part. And you kind of jump straight into the fact of doing practical activities as opposed to, say, just a presentation, because that's a given for you, because you always do try and do activities with the children. But I think one thing to mention is that the feedback we get from teachers when we do, like, compared to, say, somebody turning up and just doing a talk, compared to running an interactive practical activity with the children, is that an interactive activity is so much more inclusive, because it allows children who have all sorts of different learning styles, the children who don't love just writing or drawing, but they can get hands-on and doing something. And that is engaging children who would otherwise not be as engaged. We constantly get that feedback from teachers that practical activities are so inclusive. So that's a big recommendation. And the IMechE has so many brilliant resources for practical activities. Maybe, Elena, you could drop that in the chat, the link to the IMechE STEM at Home resources. So many video tutorials, access to getting free resources you can run with schools. So your life is made very easy to run practical activities. Highly recommend getting involved with that. And thank you, Anna, for mentioning some other things, like really the importance of interacting with the teacher as well, and trying to understand the needs of your audience before you turn up. So having a quick conversation with the teacher beforehand is so, so important. Okay, thank you, Anna. So I have another question for the audience here that I'd like you to think about based on what we've discussed, kind of the facts and figures that you've seen, maybe thoughts around representation, being a relatable role model, the high need around SEN, Anna's experience and her top tips. What will you take away to aim to make your future STEM outreach more inclusive? So have a think about that. And I'm going to, just for another 5 minutes, put you back into breakout rooms so you can share what you feel your top takeaways are from what you've heard about tonight. And then we'll come back together to close the session. Okay, so have a think about that. How will you aim to make your future STEM outreach more inclusive, considering all the things that we've talked about? And I will put you into some breakout rooms so you can go and have a chat about that. Okay, hopefully you'll meet someone new as well. Off you go. You should have a breakout room popping up on your screen now. Welcome back. Okay, so hopefully you've all managed to have a quick think about a tangible takeaway that you might consider to help make your STEM outreach more inclusive. Hopefully you also got to meet someone new. In the last 5 minutes of the session, does anyone want to share the kind of discussion that was happening in their breakout room just then, or if anyone has any questions for Anna or questions for myself or questions for Yelena, feel free to share them now.
The first thing a couple of us said in our room was the thing about like being more proactive about talking to the teachers about like, you know, what needs we've got going on in the class and how we might best approach the activity and things.
Such a good point. Yes, absolutely. I like to think of the teacher as a partner rather than a client or a customer, as somebody that you're like performing to and trying to have everything perfect. Think of them as somebody that you can collaborate with, and they absolutely will want that. They will want to have a bit of a heads up as to what you're planning to do, what your aims are, what kind of content or activity you're going to be doing. And they will absolutely love it if you ask the question, how can I make sure that I am as inclusive as possible with what I'm doing? What are the needs of the children in your class? How can we make this as inclusive as possible for everyone, and have a conversation about it? So teachers are very busy, but if you can arrange a quick phone call or even have, you know, meet them before you're going to run the session, that is such a good idea and helps reduce our nerves as the STEM ambassador as well, when you realize they're on your side and they want to help. Yeah, great point. Thanks for sharing that, Amy. Well, thanks for putting that in the chat, Gemma. Session's been really useful, make a difference, not just to STEM outreach, but our workplaces, as some of this is transferable. I completely agree. Very, very good point. Thank you.
What you're just saying about contacting the school beforehand, my experience is, oh, can you come and talk to us such and such a day? You roll up and then saying, you know, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to talk to them. What do you want me to talk to them about? And it's a case of, well, yeah, we've got an hour, you know, just talk to them. And it's a little bit, nothing is planned, but they trust me as a STEM ambassador to talk to them sensibly, if you like, and just put that little bit of an idea into their futures in engineering. And I tell them everything is not made by nature, it's made by an engineer. So
It's very true.
Let's find you what we're going to do.
I love that, John. Yeah, and you as an experienced person, experienced STEM ambassador, can probably turn up without much prep. I think a lot of people would need to have a clearer plan of what they're going to do and maybe an activity planned so that they're not doing it off the cuff. But with your level of experience, I'm sure you are a pro at that. Anyone else want to share? Stephen?
So, yeah. So kind of a lot of our discussions were around being able to treat the classes as individuals and being able to adapt on the fly, but kind of just adding to the bits of kind of going into schools. If you can make contact with a school's SENCO, that's the Special Education Needs Coordinating Officer, they will have the full view of the kids who are on the education care plans and who aren't. And they tend to be the most amazing teachers. I know personally from myself, because we've got a lot of contact with the SENCO to the school I volunteer at and my daughter goes to. And they're the ones that if you get with them, you'll know what you're dealing with going into the situation because they have all of that information, whereas some of the teachers might not.
That's such great advice. Thanks for sharing that, Stephen. That's brilliant. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your engagement and your discussion, and a huge thanks to Anna for sharing her personal story and experience and her top tips. Thank you, everybody. Yelena, over to you to close the session. Thank you.
I have nothing further to add. Thanks everybody for joining, taking time out of your evenings. Please share with anyone that's useful, that might find it useful. And thank you again to Anna and to Alex and of course you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Stay in touch and hopefully see you at a future session. All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.